So cinnamon buns are all the craze, and today we are going to make vegan cinnamon buns. Hi, welcome to Cake Mom. I'm Abby. This is Aaliyah. And on this channel, I share with you guys some of my favorite tips and techniques, as well as recipes, to help you with your home baking projects. If you're new or haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel and hitting that notifications bell so that you can see when I post my next video.
Look, I made a snowman.
So cinnamon buns are an American favorite breakfast food, dessert, whatever you want them to be, because they are delicious. They're a yeasty based roll filled with yummy brown sugar and butter, and they're just wonderful. I don't know if you've ever made vegan ones before. They're pretty delicious. So we're gonna show you how to do that. As always, the recipe will be in the description below, but here's everything you will need for the dough part. All-purpose flour, almond or your favorite nut milk, vegan butter, sugar, activated dry yeast, and salt. So one important thing, you do want to make sure your milk, whatever nut milk you use, is room temperature, and I'll tell you why in a bit, but go ahead and set this out before you start the recipe. So we're gonna start with melting our vegan butter. I like to use Earth's Balance. You can use whatever your favorite vegan butter is. It'll work just fine for this recipe. So just melt it on low. So next you're going to add the sugar and almond milk or whatever nut milk to your melted butter. The reason that you want your milk room temperature, because if you add cold milk to melted butter, you're gonna solidify your butter again. So that's why you want that room temperature. So now you want to take the temperature of your mixture here. You want it to be between 100 and 110 degrees. If it's more than that, it'll kill the yeast. So you don't want it to be above 110. Now you're going to sprinkle the active dry yeast over the surface of this, and then we're going to let that sit for about 5 minutes to bloom the yeast. So after about 5 minutes, you should have something like this, where your yeast is starting to get all bubbly and foamy. That just means your yeast is alive and well, which means your cinnamon rolls will work out much better than if you have dead yeast. So now we're going to pour this mixture into a bowl. I'm going to do this one, you can do the next one. Now you're going to stir in the flour and salt. I just like to pour the salt in the flour. Alright, you gonna stir it while I pour? Alright. Keep stirring. Cover and let this rise for 1 hour before continuing. I'm just gonna cover it with plastic wrap. So the dough has been resting for approximately 1 hour. It should have doubled in size, which is what you're looking for. Looks about double to me. So what we're going to do now is stir in another ½ cup of flour. Now you don't have to stir this all the way in, it just depends on how sticky your dough is. At this point, we're going to turn it out onto a surface and just give it a light knead. You don't want to work the gluten too much, but you do want to get it all that flour in there, and you want you don't really want a sticky dough. You don't want it to stick to your surface. So just knead it just till you get to that point, and add more flour if necessary. Just to make sure that this won't stick at all, sprinkle your surface with just a little bit of flour, just lightly. Now we're going to roll this gently into a rectangle. Now you want to go ahead and just even out your corners. Make sure they're nice. And now we're going to spread this with more butter. And by butter, I mean vegan butter. So just give it a nice even spread. Now we're going to roll this up as tight as possible, starting at the side closest to you. And I tend to find that it's a little bit handy to have a bench scraper with me to loosen it up if it got stuck to the table. Then we're just gonna roll her up. Roll her up.
Roll pum pum. How does this taste?
Like cinnamon and sugar.
It doesn't. Ew.
What does it taste like? All right, so now with even more of your vegan butter, we're gonna grease a pan. Just spread this around really well. You just don't want your cinnamon bun sticking. Just hands in. Okay, so now you wanna slice this roll into about 1 inch to 1.5 inch thick slices. Yes. So I like to start in the middle so that I get an even number of rolls. So remember, the tighter you roll the log, the better your spiral will be. But at this point, we're going to cover them up and let them rise for another 30 minutes before you bake them. After they've been rising for about 15 minutes, go ahead and start preheating your oven to 375 degrees. If you want to have these ready for breakfast, but you don't want to go through all the rising, you can actually get it to that point before the second rise and stick it in the fridge overnight. Let it rise overnight, and then the next morning, pull it out, bring them to room temperature, and shove them in the oven. We're going to bake these at 350 degrees for approximately 25 to 30 minutes or until they are golden brown. Okay, so my cinnamon buns are finished baking. They are out of the oven and they are still warm. And while they're still warm, we're gonna make a little glaze to go on top. So as always, the recipe is in the description, but we have some powdered sugar, some dairy-free milk, this one's almond milk, and some vanilla. All right, so you're gonna whisk everything together, and if needed, either add a little more milk or a little more powdered sugar until you have a nice, thick, drizzly icing to drizzle on your cinnamon bun. So then just drizzle it on there, and you're done. The middle's the best part. Look at that. Look how fluffy that is. So good, oh my gosh. Okay, so there are my vegan cinnamon rolls. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you might also really like to check out this vegan ice cream cake we made last week. Go check it out. It was delicious and super easy to make. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up, comment below, and hit that subscribe and notifications bell so that you can see when we post our next video. Have a great one.